Hello and welcome to Daily Records. I'm sorry for the late arrival today. I got kind of caught. And anyway, better late than never. There is a Daily Record today. And it is going to be for the Thin Lizzy album, Jailbreak. Released on March 26, 1976. This was the sixth album by the band. To be released from Ireland. Those of you who don't know, Thin Lizzy is an Irish band, but this ended up being the big commercial breakthrough album in the United States for Thin Lizzy, and this was the only Thin Lizzy album, I believe, in their whole career to go gold in the United States. Driven by the singles Jailbreak as well as The Boys Are Back in Town. Probably the biggest hit they ever had in the United States. And it even went on to win a 1976 New Musical Express Award for Best Single. Everybody knows big rock song. The band at this point was Phil Lynott, bass guitar, vocals, songwriter, Scott Gorham, lead guitar, Brian Downey on drums, and Brian Robertson also on lead guitar. Thin Lizzy was known for that dual lead guitar thing that was very influential on bands like Metallica. They were very much into sort of harmonies on the leads. There were several bands that sort of incorporated that, but Thin Lizzy really did a good job of making sort of the melodic lead line with a harmonic lead playing instead of just one guy kind of wailing away. You'd have a guy doing a harmony song. Another standout song for me on this album is Cowboy Song, which is a great track. Now, in the live album that came out later, Live and Dangerous, there was a great segue from Cowboy Song into The Boys Are Back in Town. With the last note of the stinger note of Cowboy Song going right into Boys Are Back in Town. And I don't understand why they didn't do that on the album, because that just feels like it's a great 1-2 punch and goes together. So not sure why. Now, the previous albums by these guys, Nightlife and Fighting, that had come out on the Mercury label, really didn't do anything as far as sales were concerned. And so Vertigo Records, who was their label, were kind of given this was their last shot. So they wrote these songs and collected ideas together in a studio in Buckinghamshire. In late 75, they got together in Ramport Studios in London at the beginning of 76. And got with John Alcock as their producer. And he'd worked in the studio quite a lot. And they worked all the way through February on the album. And Scott Gorham and Brian Robertson really felt like that recording that quickly affected the quality of the album itself. And I'll show you guys the label on mine. Mine's a Mercury label, a later pressing. This is an original Mercury label, U.S. pressing. But Robertson actually said he wanted a little more time to improv the lead guitar parts, and Gorham kind of felt like Alcock's production, he didn't like the guitar tone. Phil Lynott, that was kind of the big thing, but to me, it's just a great, solid, tight, hard rock record. A lot of these hard rock records in particular, I don't know. I think sometimes the shoddy production or low quality of the production actually adds to the overall ambiance of it. So I don't mind it. Warriors was a song Phil Lynott wrote. He kind of was talking about referring to heavy drug users. At the time, he kind of described them as warriors. And that people that were using those kinds of drugs, and he compared it to people like Hendrix and Duane Allman, said they kind of knew what they were getting to. They weren't slowly being hooked. It was very much a decision for them to go out and go as far as they could. Another track on the album, Running Back, written by Phil, was supposed to be the first single on the album, but it was kind of seen, The Boys Are Back in Town, was kind of seen as a little bit too aggressive, and radio stations weren't sure about it, or they felt like it might be a little unsure for radio stations. But as we know, history tells us that Boys Are Back in Town was the single released. And so they brought in a few studio people to add some punch to the album, some commercial elements. So they were going for a commercial sound at this point, and really we're going for that. So it's a good solid record, a good sound, a great hard rock album. Those of you who follow my other channel, you know that I've been looking for Thin Lizzy records for quite a while. I finally found this copy of Jailbreak and was stoked to get it. So good stuff. One of those bands, they weren't a huge seller in the U.S., so their records are a little harder to come by, but just a really great hard rock band and very influential, and I dig Phil's voice. So today's Daily Record, Jailbreak by Thin Lizzy. Like, comment, subscribe, share, follow me on Instagram and Twitter, TommyBurton75. In the meantime, I'll see you all again tomorrow with another Daily Record.